All right. Welcome to this week's live office hours. Casey, how are you?
Good. Bearing this heat up in the Northeast here. I'm sure we've got some folks going through the same heat wave throughout. So I hope everybody's staying cool out there.
It's summertime, man. We're here.
Yeah,
You know?
finally. I mean, we were getting rain for weekends on weekends, and then it overcorrected a little bit. But I'll take the heat over rain, so that's all right.
Well, everybody's like, "Oh, I can't wait for summer." Then summer gets here, and people are like, "It's too hot." I'm like, "Well, that's summer. It's kind of the definition. Like
I
it's,
love
you
fall.
know,
Fall's my perfect temperature.
fall's the sweet spot, right? I want some coolness in the evenings, enough warmth in the day, nothing
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah. Light
Yes, fall.
sweatshirt weather is what
I'm
I
I'm
aim
I'm a
for.
fall man myself.
Yeah,
Give me pumpkin
nice.
spice everything. I want it all.
Nice. Yeah. Let's see here. And yeah, as a reminder to everybody, open office hours, we kind of start with a couple discussion things to kind of get things rolling. But if you do have any questions, please come into the comments. We're happy to dive into examples, dive into an account, different settings, things like that, just to show you, best practices, answer any questions, shed some light in some areas that may be not super clear. But just to kick us off here, one thing I wanted to share with folks is looking at a specific listing and just being able to view kind of your competition on a listing, perhaps who may be winning the buy box if it's not yourself, and just a quick way to kind of check on your own prices and other prices on a listing just to see where you may line up. So I'm going to share my screen here and we'll just kind of go through an example. Awesome. So this is just an example listing in our account. It's not actively repricing, but one thing I want to point out is this buy box price here. This is going to show you the buy box winner, but if you actually click on this, it'll show you all of the competitive offers on that specific listing. It'll also show the specific buy box winners, that fulfillment type of those offers there. And if you do have a specific competitor you're looking to maybe assess, you could click right on their ID. It'll bring you to that specific seller's page there. And then one thing to note as well, this is going to be that buy box winner icon, if you will. You can see on this listing, there's actually two buy box winners, and this can occur on different listings at any given time. This is what we call regional buy boxes, and Amazon will award regional buy boxes where two people can win the buy box at one time, just in different areas. They decide that there will be regional buy boxes when they determine that one offer is favorable for customers in a specific region, while another offer is more advantageous for all other shoppers. So if you ever do see an instance where you may be winning the buy box, but if you go to that actual Amazon listing page, you're not shown as the buy box winner, I recommend checking this all offers section and seeing if you do have that icon next to you. That may indicate that you're actually just winning a regional buy box. And we do gather this data directly from Amazon via our API connection with them. So this is going to be the most accurate data available. If you see yourself coded as the buy box winner, you're either winning the buy box in a regional section, or Amazon's working on processing that update, having you reflected in that actual buy box there. So I know last week we kind of went through managing both Walmart and Amazon marketplaces within the same account. Just wanted to show the all offers section here. As of right now, this is just on Amazon listings, but we're working on gathering this data from Walmart. So you'll be able to see similar offers and stats and metrics on Walmart listings in the near future.
Awesome. And Casey, one thing before you stop sharing your screen that I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get a lot of questions of, is there a quick way to go from Aura to the listing on Amazon? Is there like shortcuts and stuff like that? Can you cover a few of those?
Yeah, definitely. So there's actually two ways you can get right to the listing. So the first is just going to be if you click on any product image, and this is for both Walmart and Amazon listings. If you click on any product image, it'll bring you right to that specific page there as well. And you can get to that all offers section here, but you can also get to the all offers in this three dotted button in the top right corner. You can look at the all offers, which will show you what we were just looking at there. You can go to the pricing activity for that specific listing. So if you want to see, specific updates that were issued by Aura, this will be sorted on a SKU specific basis. And then if you do want to go to that listing page there, you can use this link here. So either clicking on that three dotted button and clicking on that section there, or just clicking on the product images, that's going to be the quickest way to do that. If you do go to the specific listings page, you can click on the three dotted button here and you get those same options, but that image does work on the listings page as well. So I typically recommend just clicking on those product images. That's going to be the quickest way to just jump over to that listing on either Amazon or Walmart. That does work for both marketplaces there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad we covered that, because it's a question to get asked a lot. And some people are like, oh, I see that it's up in the three dots, but that's 2 clicks. I only want 1. Just so you know, you can click the product image and that will take you right to where you want to go, which is fantastic. So I definitely want us to cover that, make sure that's super clear, so everybody knows how to kind of speed up their workflows, their process when they're looking at things. One thing I did want to touch on too is the robo-taxi stuff that's happening. So I kind of joked, probably, I don't know. Actually, I'm losing track of time. My cadence of time, my measurement of time is out of whack at this point. It was probably 3 to 6 months ago, about the idea that if you're doing RA and stuff like that, a lot of people will have to stop sourcing because they packed out their vehicle. And it's like, well, I wonder if, at some point you get robo-taxis good enough where you could just load it up and be like, go to my house, and it would just go, and you could just be sending fleets of these things as you're sourcing stuff, right? So there's no longer a capacity issue physically for doing things like RA sourcing. And Tesla recently started testing this in Austin, Texas, and apparently it's going very well. I've seen a lot of videos of people who are in the program who got early access. And it's pretty impressive. They still have a safety person in the passenger seat up front. Nobody's sitting in the driver's seat. It's really just just in case kind of a thing. They're going to start to spread this out. But what's interesting is they were looking at it and comparing it to Waymo, because Waymo has been operating for a little bit longer in a very small area. But the cost of the Waymos to build them, all the LiDAR, all that stuff they're doing is insane. So to scale, that's crazy. Well, Tesla's already scaling out the Model Ys, all these different things. Now it comes down to, can you just prove it in a small enough location, go to a double that size, and just keep exponentially growing that? Looks like you can. So a lot of things are about to start changing. There's a lot of people who, you prefer a certain type of car for your daily driving, and maybe that's not the best for sourcing. Right? I tell people, listen, if you're sourcing crazy for RA, you need a Sprinter van. You need space. But I get it. You don't really want to be driving a Sprinter van everywhere in your regular day-to-day life. But, what if you could have a Sprinter van and then just cyber robo-taxi everywhere else? I don't know. So it's picking up steam, which is really cool. It looks like it's going incredibly well so far. And we're not really having to wait for the cyber cab vehicle that they showed. I think it was late last year. They're doing this with regular Model Ys, which is just dumbfounding to me. Yeah. So pretty interesting stuff. So when I say that, I think what it's going to be like to be a reseller is going to change. I really do mean that in a lot of different ways. Certainly from the technical software side of things. So the digital on your computer kind of stuff, AI agents, things of that nature. But I think on the physical side too, it's fundamentally going to change. I mean, if you start pairing things like, the cyber cab, maybe that allows you to do what I'm talking about. I don't know. It's kind of more so a theory at this point. Then you add in humanoid robotics for the prep side, and, a prep center might have dozens of these things working 24/7. But if you don't want to do that, could you have 1 or 2 in your garage that's prepping for you 24/7 as well? Possibly. And so I'm urging more and more sellers to at least pay attention to these things. It's not that they're here yet, but they're coming faster than you realize. And these become opportunities. These become competitive advantages that can make a big difference. I mean, if you can take your prep from, let's call it $1.50, $1.75, whatever you're paying your prep center. And I'm a big fan of prep centers. If you can pull that down to, 10 cents per unit and do it all at home with a robot, now your margins start to increase just a little bit. And that's a pretty interesting thing. And even when you're you're not having it prep. Let's say you ran out of things for it to prep. It goes and does other things, does house chores for you. So the ROI on these things could be absolutely, astronomical.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, we always talk about using different tools. The main reasons being time savings is one of the biggest, attributes of using any tool, really. Obviously, Aura is a big believer in that. It's way easier to just set up rules and reprice your thousands of listings in a handful of minutes as opposed to manually going through it. There's obviously all sorts of other tools out there and different processes of all sorts of different industries, and both AI, like the general tools that we already have access to, and then as they start to bleed into AI robots and kind of assistants and things like that, time savings is going to be the biggest reclaimer. In terms of like ROI, it's always hard to measure ROI on time. I always like to create some sort of like, what would you pay yourself on an hourly rate? That's how I figure out if I'm gonna walk home or get an Uber in certain scenarios, things like that. But yeah, I do think as we start to get more access to these things, time savings is going to be the biggest, factor there. And there's really no way to measure that effectively. I mean, I value my free time very highly. I'm sure lots of other folks do as well.
Sure.
So if you're able to free up time, invest more in other areas like sourcing, which is still a little bit more manual and kind of needs to be in some scenarios now, then that's just going to make you more effective in sourcing, leads to more money in the bottom line, more free time, therefore, and it kind of feeds itself. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see as we start to get more access to stuff like that.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up this valuing your time concept, right? We hear a lot about this as founders, as business owners, and I have always struggled with this because there's a few different ways you can do it, right? You different ways you can calculate it, and I created my leverage coach AI assistant is what I did. So there's a Claude project. We've talked about Claude projects for a while. Uploaded a bunch of good stuff, bunch of books, stuff by Dan Martell, stuff by Naval Ravikant. And those two individuals actually calculate the value of their time vastly different than one another. And I actually like that because as I'm thinking through certain things like delegation, outsourcing, whatever, I can see this through different perspectives and I can almost sanity check myself because Naval basically wants you to set a aspirational value per hour of your time. Could be $5,000, could be $500, whatever, right? And he argues that anything less than that should be handed off to somebody else. I don't disagree with that, but it's also a very uncomfortable thing to do, especially for somebody like me who did not come from money. It's a very uncomfortable thing. Now, Dan Martell's approach is slightly different. He says, get what you're actually paying yourself per hour. So your set salary, because most founders and business owners at a certain point, you're just going to pay yourself a set salary and keep growing the business. Then you take a quarter of that. So you divide it by 4. Anything at or below that amount per hour you can pay somebody else to do, you should do that because you're now getting, in theory, at least a 4x ROI on your time. I like that because it feels a little bit more practical. It feels a little bit more tangible, more, I'm getting that value today, right? Like that's actual like dollars in, dollars out. So what's nice is, if I'm thinking about something, I can go chat with this assistant and it will run through the rationale for both Naval and for Dan Martell. So there's a lot of cases where it's like, yeah, it matches both criteria. Why are you still doing this yourself? In other cases, it goes, well, it works for Naval's, but it does not work for Dan's. Maybe we need to pause and think about this a little bit more seriously. I'm like, oh, cool, right? So I don't believe in this whole like outsource everything simply because you can. I don't love that for some reason. Not that it's wrong, but I just disagree with some aspects of it because I feel like most things people are outsourcing just shouldn't be done, period. So like you could have just deleted it, or paid a software to automate that thing and you're paying a human way more to do it. It makes no rational, logical sense to me. But I do like this concept of, kind of scaling yourself, right? I think this has been a big driver for me as an individual, which is how do I do more than a single person's worth of work without having to work that many hours, right? And this is just leverage 101, right? How do I make my outputs per hour, so to speak, exponentially greater than if I did everything manually and whatnot? And like, this is nothing new, but I think it's a good way to explain why I'm so interested in this kind of technology and how things are progressing, because it is unlocking more leverage for the individual. And especially being a business owner, you need that. You just do. And so you quickly start to think through that lens when you start to look at these humanoid robots, self-driving cars, and go, I wonder how I could utilize that to increase my value per hour, to decrease my cost of achieving a certain outcome. And then it kind of makes you see the world very differently. And I still believe in it. It's starting to change, which I'm so happy to see, that a lot of sellers lean too much on outsourcing and not enough on technology. Yes, you're using software and stuff like that. Of course, you can't run this business without software, but I don't think they're thinking through the lens of technological leverage. I think it's really just, well, everybody says get these 3 to 5 softwares and that's how you run the business. Sure. But are you solving problems using technology at a deeper level? Are you finding ways to automate certain things using software? Are you using tools like Zapier, like Lindy.ai, all these different things, and just keeping them in your tool belt for when certain problems come up? I like being like, all right, here's a problem. I have this cognitive tool belt that I can say, okay, well, what would make the most sense and be the easiest way to automate or solve this? And then just being able to go execute on that. That's a good skill set to build. But we're getting to a point now where it's not the basic kind of automations like Zapier anymore. And it took a big leap is I think where a lot of people go, yeah, I know Zapier. I've automated all kinds of stuff. That's cool. But this new stuff, I don't know. I'm not sure what to do. And I totally agree. It's very overwhelming. But when you start to play with it, when you start to see what's coming, it kind of gets you excited. I often talk to ChatGPT using the voice mode about random ideas. I have this weird habit where I'll pick a technology and be like, okay, let's theorize what an average day would look like for a founder like me if this technology was already here. And one of the things that was really cool to me was augmented reality glasses and robo-taxis. And, so it laid out a typical day. It was like, all right, you wake up, you got a meeting, you need to head into the city. So you book, or your AI already booked a robo-taxi for you. So you jump in, you put on your glasses, and immediately the car is filled with dashboards of what's happening in the business right now. And it's alerting you, hey, these things are looking really good. This is one thing that we kind of need to pay attention to. And it's like, and then you say, okay, well, what team that revolves around, let's go ahead and do a deeper analysis using AI, wrap that up, and then send that over to the correct team to have them verify and take a deeper look and see if we can correct that. And I'm like, man, like it's such a simple thing. And it's such, like a futuristic kind of feeling. But when you think about it from, man, how much leverage would I have as a founder if I could move that quickly? If I could stack things like travel with work, and the work itself also being highly leveraged. That's when you start to get obsessed with this kind of stuff, because then it bleeds into other areas too, right? If it can do that kind of stuff, it can do stuff in your personal life. And so you start to get really optimistic and excited about that potential future. And once you kind of see it, you can't unsee it, kind of a thing, right? So then you're like, okay, cool. How far away is that? Like, I need to know. And it's like, okay, well, that what I just described, basically it hits a few different types of technologies. So it's like, okay, well, smart glasses are kind of here, but not to the degree we're talking about. Apple Vision Pro can certainly do these, mounted widgets. I saw one on Twitter today. A guy mounted his Tesla app widgets in his garage walls so he can control his Tesla with gestures, like hand gestures. So like, okay, it's technically possible. We just need to get into a form function that's lightweight and not a massive thing sitting on your face. And now we have robo-taxis that are technically there. We just need to scale them out. And obviously AI for the analysis and stuff like that, we're slowly getting there. So it's like, man, when you break it all down, we're not that far away. It's really just time now. And now it's like, it's not is this technically possible? Does it break the laws of physics kind of problem? It's Now we just got to get into the right form factor for this to really
Right.
be easy to use and make sense.
Yeah, like all of those individual components exist. It's just a matter of like putting them together in a cohesive, whether it's,
Correct.
one provider gives all of them or gives you the access to connect
Yeah.
all of them or things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I often, think about different ways of using Aura a lot. I remember when VR first came out, I was like, man, should we design like a spatial version of Aura? And it's like, actually, that's insane. You don't need to do that. But now with the introduction of AI and MCPs and all this stuff, you could very easily see a world where you put on a pair of glasses that look normal, but they're augmented reality hooked up to AIs. And you're like, hey, can you review all my listings in Aura and let me know if there's any exceptions or things that I need to look at? And it goes, oh yeah, okay, give me a minute here. Comes back, goes, hey, there's 5 here that I'm not really sure what's happening. I dug a little bit deeper. Here's my recommendations. Are you good with that? And it'll display it. And you'll be like, yeah, everything looks good except for number 4. Number 4, can we dive deeper? Can you show me some more details on that? It goes, yeah, sure. And so, the way you might interact with a software like Aura in the future might be mainly voice, right? It might not be you going in and clicking things, right? We've already talked about how you can automate 95% of your account, but there's always exceptions, right? There's a reason why I probably will never say 100% of your account can be automated. There's always these weird exceptions. But how you deal with those exceptions could be very different in the future, in the very near future at that, right? And if you could do that with a software like Aura, you could ostensibly do it for any software, right? So any of the other softwares you're using, could also be manipulated by these AI agents, and you're just the orchestrator of the work. This is what's really cool. You're shifting from I'm strategizing what I need to do. So I'm making decisions and thinking and analyzing, and then I'm going and executing on the work itself. I'm logging in, or I'm paying a human to log in and do these things, to removing the execution side entirely. And you're just being an orchestrator, but you're also using an AI co-pilot to help with the analysis and the rationale, the reasoning side of things, going back and forth, really like this thought partner, coming to a conclusion and being like, yep, that actually makes a lot of sense to me. Now that I have all this information, let's go ahead and execute on that. And it goes, cool. I'll let you know in 5-10 minutes when it's done. And it's just done. I mean, how much free time could you free up with something that simple? I would argue probably a decent amount, at least, if we're just removing execution, because you really should be thinking a lot, it's probably going to be minimum 40% of your time.
Definitely.
I'd imagine.
Yeah.
I think about like what you guys do with support. Oh, and I mean, you guys are a great use case for this, where you're spending a lot of time, not just answering tickets, but also thinking through problems and getting more details on things to understand what's really happening. And if you could, shift more of the time to, hey, just tell me exactly what's happening. Go do the research for me that I would do manually. Just go extract it for me the way I want it done every single time, and help me come to that conclusion. So you're still doing the work, but you're augmenting yourself by removing some of the manual aspects of the analysis that you're doing, coming to a conclusion faster, and then being like, yep, that's exactly what it is. Tell them this. Like, that's dumbfounding to me. And again, sounds super futuristic, but I don't think we're that far away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that comes into play where we talk about, managers will be the most, for lack of a better word, savvy with using these tools, because they're going to be able to give proper instructions on processes, plans of actions, how to assess data that it may be observing. And that would definitely be a perfect example for us, where we would have to teach it to properly look at all the data, all the different areas, kind of comparing different factors and functions and things, and then coming to a solution. But yeah, definitely not as far into the future as we previously thought. I mean, these updates seem to be coming exponentially more quickly, and each one seems to be like a larger leap forward, if you will. So definitely not that crazy to think about things like that being available in the near future, for sure.
Yeah. This is why I talk about it all the time, by the way. It's cool and it's impactful. Let's see. We got a few questions here we start to dive into. Let's see, Andrew. Casey, I'm gonna let you handle this one. I want to price low enough to win the buy box, then raise the price incrementally until I lose it to find the highest buy box eligible price. If I lose the buy box, I want to drop back to regain the buy box. Once I've won again, I want the price to adjust to the lowest known highest price unless market conditions change. For example, buy box 1 at 26, increase to 27, increase to 28, increase to 29, lost buy box, reset price to 26. Once buy box 1, reprice it and keep at 28. All right, so this is hyper specific.
Yeah, so in this scenario, Andrew, what I would recommend, we don't currently have a way to set up this exact functionality specifically the way that you're looking for. Currently, we have our rules-based strategies, which are, for lack of a better term, and this is not a negative, they're more rigid. They're going to look at your specific competition, look at your specific settings, and then price accordingly. And then we do have our Maven AI strategy that's more optimized for that balance between sales velocity and profitability. Winning the buy box is a piece of Maven's logic, but it's not the entire pie, if you will, in terms of how it's assessing its pricing logic. With that being said, I would recommend using Maven. Maven would be as close as you can get to this specific function here. What Maven will do is it will drop your price to try and reach that buy box. However, if it realizes that, hey, you win the buy box, but then someone else prices below you to take it from you, it won't continue to price below that other seller. That's going to lead to price taking on the listing. That's not ideal. So what's going to happen in that scenario is it's going to opt to match that price and stay there until that other person maybe raises their price, until they sell out, until the buy box price drops, whatever it may be. That's going to be your best bet, because if you do win the buy box, it will try to raise your price, try to maximize those margins there. And then if you lose it, it will continue to then reprice again, find that buy box winning price, and then raise your price again to most likely a lower price point. With that being said, Maven is a fully AI strategy. It's tough to say exactly how it's going to perform because it takes in an immense amount of data. It's going to take in previous sales prices for different purchases. It's going to take in different buy box price points. It's going to take in your current competition, their fulfillment methods. So it is taking in a well of data, and it will price accordingly, but just because of that, it won't perform the same on each listing. So that's the long way of saying I would recommend Maven on those listings. That's going to be the best way to try to maximize both profitability and some buy box share. If you're not seeing your ideal or intended results there, then I do recommend shifting to a rules-based buy box strategy. You can either price slightly below that buy box winner or match them. And then I'll actually share my screen quickly here. And I just want to highlight the maintenance section here. That's going to be what tells all of our rules-based strategies how to react when you become that buy box winner. And there's a couple important distinctions here. So let me share that. Awesome. So what we typically recommend, that is a Walmart strategy. Let's go here. This is what we typically recommend for most buy box strategies. This raise your price within 2 cents. What this is going to do is it's actually going to raise your price to be 2 cents below that next highest offer of the same fulfillment type. So if you're FBA, it's going to bring you 2 cents below that next highest FBA offer. FBM, same thing. What you can also do is if you find that that raising price function is causing you to lose the buy box, you can select do not reprice. This is another way to just hold you at that buy box winning price, kind of ensure that you stay there until it's taken from the competition, at which point Aura is going to revert to those competition settings. And then the other thing I wanted to highlight is this disabled option. So if you have a competition type selected that's not the buy box specifically, let's say it's lowest FBA offer or things like that, if you have disabled, Aura will specifically follow your competition settings regardless of if you win the buy box or not. So if you always want to be matching that lowest FBA offer, regardless of you winning the buy box, and you select disabled, then Aura is going to continue to price in that manner based on your competition there. So just wanted to kind of walk through those handful of scenarios there. And I'll also pull up on my end the help article that we have on our maintenance section, and I'll post that in the chat as well, so you folks have that as a reference point.
Awesome. See, next question here, Jens, is the seller board integration in the works? We have tried to push for that. There has not been a whole lot of progress unfortunately made. We are still definitely open to it. So we're just waiting on their team to agree to doing the integration. So we would like to do it. And keep the questions coming. Like Case was saying, I know we're having a lot more people join kind of later. This is open office hours, so there is no specific format here or anything like that. We're just here to answer your questions and kind of geek out with you guys on anything we can. If not, we're going to fill the time with some nerdy stuff because that's kind of what we do. We're going to geek out no matter what. So.
And I know in the last few weeks, we have been getting into the habit of sharing screen, kind of going through the platform.
Yeah.
So if there's any, specific setting questions, or if you're just getting started, you had a question on a specific section, feel free to just put that in the comments as well. We'll be happy to kind of jump in. I'll share the screen. We can go through different areas of the strategy builder, maybe different areas of the platform itself. Happy to kind of shed some light or kind of point you folks in the right direction there as well.
I'm going to try to pull up something for us here too, because a lot of people don't know. Make sure I get the right login. That Aura also works on your phone. So a lot of people still don't know this. It works on your phone. So if you log in onto a browser, go to the dashboard, log in. If you're using iPhone, share sheet. And basically you add it as a bookmark to your home. You add it to your home screen. This also works on Android. It will behave just like a mobile app, which is fantastic. So everything you're doing on your desktop, your laptop, whatever, you can also do here. You can do it on a tablet. You can do it on your phone. I'm pretty sure Aura works on every device minus an Apple Watch. And I've just never tried it, but I can already tell you it's probably not. It works on Tesla. On the Tesla screen, I pull up the browser, log in, do what you need to do, move on. So it's pretty cool. See, Andrew, is there a way to show the ASIN in the pricing activity tab? Just showing the SKU requires us to click into it, and it'd be nice to see everything on one page without extra clicks needed. Showing the SKU requires us to click into it. Andrew, I might need a little bit more clarification on this. You can search for a SKU or an ASIN when you're on the pricing activity tab.
I believe, and let me check on my end as well. I'm not sure if you can search via ASIN just because of how we reprice and how we receive data from both Amazon and Walmart. It's going to be SKU specific.
Yeah.
I'm checking on my end to see if searching in a pricing activity via ASIN will work, but I'm not sure.
And Andrew, if you could clarify, are you trying to find the ASIN when you're searching for pricing activity for a specific SKU? I just want to make sure I fully understand kind of what you're talking about here. Go ahead and send us a follow-up, and we'll dive deeper into that.
Yeah, and based on what I'm looking at, I believe it is SKU specific, just because there can be, an ASIN would be a shirt. All the SKUs would be the different sizes. So based on how we issue updates on a SKU basis, I don't believe we can search pricing activity via ASIN.
All right, so here we go. So pricing activity tab shows the price changes, but it's hard to associate what listing/ASIN it's referring to. In order to see what listing was affected, I'd have to click into the SKU to see the details page. Having the ASIN shown would immediately show me which listing is being changed. I see. Or even a picture of the listing itself. Yeah, I think the picture would be fantastic there, actually. That definitely would be fantastic. Yeah, we do show the SKU. Now the upside though is, because everything is SKU specific, even if we show the ASIN, everybody's different. Some people associate ASINs, some people associate SKUs. I'm more of a product title guy because I'm lazy. That's just easier for me. Or pictures. Pictures work for me cognitively way easier. So you can just grab that, search for it, know exactly what you're looking for. But yeah, totally hear you on that. I feel like a picture would be better. And we might, if I'm not mistaken, already have something going with that. I'll have to triple check. It's been a while, but I'm pretty sure we already have something working on that. So that's good.
Yeah, and one thing I'll highlight as well. So this is kind of similar to our listings page, is if you click in this plus sign here, you can actually kind of configure your pricing activity page. So if you want to, obviously this is more limited data compared to the listings page, but you can kind of organize this accordingly. If you want to put the price change at the far left, you can do that as well. But I'll actually use that as an opportunity to kind of show folks on the listings page. You can do that as well. So obviously there's a lot of data. I know a lot of folks don't need to see all this data. If there's anything you don't want to see, you can simply just remove that by unchecking the box. Or if you do click and drag anything, let's say you want the SKU to be all the way on the left, you would just drag that to the top and that'll populate there. So just kind of another quick tip to help manage or organize your account in the way that's going to be most cohesive for your specific processes and workflows there.
Yeah. And I'll show too my default layout for the listings page, because there is a lot of data, and because we're jumping in and out of accounts so frequently, I like to set this up a certain type of way. So let me clear up my screen a little bit here, and then I'll show you exactly how I do it. And there's some logic to why I'm doing it the way that I am. So let's get this up here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so the way I set this up is I want to start with the listing because that's what I'm obviously referencing. I then go to repricing. So I'm looking at some of my controls here. I then go to cost. And then what's really cool is I do the min, buy box, and then max. What's nice about that kind of layout, specifically these three, is that it's allowing you to see, is my min and max respecting the buy box, right? So like, here's a good example. Min, almost 170, buy box is currently 180, max is at 200. I don't have to worry about this. This is going to be totally fine. However, if I saw something different, I would want to make changes, right? So like this one, okay, cool. The buy box is basically at the min. Maybe I need to take a deeper look at that. Or if the buy box is beneath my min or above the max, I need to fix that, right? So I kind of lay this out because that's really what you're doing, right? You want the buy box to be within your min max range. And so we just set up the table view here to do that. And then you'll notice I have hyperdrive, strategy, offer count, rank, and fees. And usually I don't even have rank or fees on. I did that for something I was diving deeper into, but I do like to know the offer count. So that just lets me know how competitive is this, right? And what's nice is I'm in split screen right now, but if I'm in full screen, I see everything without having to horizontally scroll like I'm doing now. So there's a, depending on your screen size, there's a maximum number that you can hit of pieces of data. So number of columns that will remove the need to go sideways. So a lot of people don't like to have to scroll sideways. Totally understand. That's why we introduced this guy. So there's a lot in here I don't have on. Right now, it's different for every single person, right? But a good thing here is I don't put SKU or ASIN or name on there. Why? Because listing includes those three things. So I can just have one column instead of three columns to give me the same amount of data. So very quickly, I can do what I need to. I can see how things are going here. I can change my strategy, and I'm good to go. And one thing I might want to change is actually putting offer count right next to my max price. So now if I'm here, even on a small screen, I can still see, okay, well, min, buy box, max, how many people are on it. So at a quick glance, I can see exactly what's happening. Super, super important. And what's nice too, by the way, is this is a user-defined setting. So if you have VAs with their own accounts in here and they're manipulating the table view for their own use case, it will not override yours. Also, if I'm on mobile, I'm getting the exact same thing. Or if I log in on, my iPad or whatever, a different device, it doesn't matter. This layout is going to be consistent for my user account across any kind of device or login session. So just wanted to highlight that.
Yeah, my listings page is constantly being rearranged depending on different issues I'm trying to help with or certain projects that we're working on our end. It's always in flux. So if anyone's ever been confused by my listing page layout and any screenshots, I apologize in advance for that.
Well, and I think that's the right way to do it, right? You should not just set it and never change it. If you have a different workflow that you're working on, even if it's short term, make the work easier for yourself, right? You hear the whole, if I have an hour to chop a tree, I'm going to spend whatever time sharpening the axe. It's the same concept here. It's like, before you start doing the work, think through the process and then make it a little bit better for yourself and then scale it. I intentionally do this where I will go really, really slow on something new just to speed myself up in the end. right? So like if I have to send out a ton of emails, I'm not going to rewrite the same email every single time. I'm going to think about turning that into a snippet, a template, whatever, and then I'm going to scale it out. So it's going to seem slower in the beginning, but actually it makes it so much easier in the end. And if I never use that template again, cool, that's fine. Still save me, an hour of my day. So very big fan of doing things like that. So you really do want to personalize your Aura account as much as you can. Every seller is so fundamentally different in terms of what they look at, how they look at it, what they prioritize, what they just straight up don't care about. And so instead of us trying to find this default that just works for everyone, which fun fact, you can't, it's like, just let you customize it. Do it however it makes sense for your brain. Let your VAs who have accounts do the exact same thing, even if it's vastly different than yours. And that's okay too. Not a problem. I feel like we should do a session one day, Casey, on just workflow and optimizations and speed and how to do things faster inside the application. There's some cool stuff we've done with that's in-app, like clicking the product image that's not as obvious, or some of the more nerdy stuff that I do. So if you notice that when you go to search for a product inside of Aura, the URL and the address bar changes. Well, I use a tool called Raycast, and it allows me to create quick links. And quick links, basically, I give it the URL, and then I put a query parameter in there. And that's basically like my variable. And so I can, search for Aura in Raycast, paste in the ASIN or product name, hit enter, it will open up the page. And now I'm already searching for that thing. So I can find it faster. So there's these little things you can kind of start to piece together that just make you faster. Across the board. See, Andrew, is it possible to get a one-on-one look at my settings offline with you? I'm on a trial, and trying these settings out would help with increasing sales, but having a hard time understanding what the best settings would be for my listings. So yes, absolutely, Andrew. If you reach out to support right now, actually, Casey or Finn is handling support right now. Just reach out to live chat, that little black icon in the bottom right, and just say, hey, I'd love to schedule an onboarding session, please. We'll send you a link. We'll get you scheduled. And Finn will actually be the guy sitting down with you, going through everything with you one-on-one. Yeah.
Yeah. And Finn's met with, at this point, hundreds, probably approaching thousands of sellers. And he's helped them kind of optimize. Obviously, we have kind of our, for lack of a better term, out of a cookbook recommendations that'll cover probably about 70% of your listings. Obviously, there's always outliers or specific scenarios and settings you want to go through.
Yeah.
But he'll walk you through kind of our recommended best practices, and then he'll also get a good sense of how you're approaching things, how you'd like to reprice certain things, and then make specific recommendations for that. So those calls run typically 20, 25 minutes. And when you're all done, you'll have strategies set up for you, kind of our recommendations, and then your own things set up as well. And you can kind of test them together or in different increments to see what's going to work best for you. But yeah, always happy to do those one-on-one onboarding calls just to make sure you're kind of pointed in the right direction to get started.
Yeah. And by the way, one-on-one onboarding calls are available for anybody, even if you're on trial, does not matter. All you have to do is reach out to support, request it. We'll send you the schedule link, and we'll get you on the books. Highly recommend, even if you've been repricing for years and you just switched to us, I still recommend doing that, because you're going to learn a lot about the platform in a relatively short period of time. And you're going to be able to get really personalized recommendations for you. A lot of times demos, onboarding calls, whatever you want to call them, are very, here's the playbook that everybody should follow, and like, that's it. We're going to cover a lot of those things because we have uncovered a lot of playbooks and things like that just work. But we're also going to ask you some questions and try to understand, does the recommendations we're about to make actually apply to you? And there's times where they do not. And so we try to hyper personalize those conversations as much as possible. So if you haven't done it, please schedule one. We love doing them. Finn does them all day, every day. We want you to do them. We don't charge for them. They're completely free. Doesn't matter to us. We just want to make sure that you're set up for success with your Aura account.
Yeah. And I'll emphasize that as well. I mean, we take a slightly different approach to repricing than a lot of other tools do. We're kind of more so focused on margin, generating the most revenue. A lot of other platforms are specifically focused on the buy box. Obviously, winning the buy box is a big piece of selling effectively, but that's not the whole puzzle. If the easy way would be, oh, you want to win the buy box, just drop your prices. That's going to be the best way to win the buy box, but that's obviously going to cut into your margins. So even if you have been repricing, whether it be manually or with other tools, definitely still recommend that call, because we do have some specific settings, some things we approach differently, some different functions that may be slightly different from what you're familiar with. And when you're set up for the best results, we almost always do outperform other platforms. So if you're set up based on our methodologies and our functions, then you're going to have the best results. So you want to get those calls scheduled.
Yep. See, Andrew has a great question here. If I have a 15% minimum ROI set in the strategy, but my min price for a listing is at 10% ROI, will it never reach my min price since it's governed by the 15% min ROI setting? So no. What's going to happen is if you manually set a min value, that is what we're going to use. So even if your strategy is set for 15% ROI, but you manually calculate and add a 10% ROI minimum dollar value, we're going to follow whatever you manually set. So you can always override things. So it really comes down to, if you manually set it, that's what we're going to do, because you explicitly told us to do that. Otherwise, we're going to fall back onto the automatic calculations. Let's see, Andrew. Yeah, so if the earliest time we can get to you is post your trial, that's not a problem. We're going to reset your trial, make sure you have enough time to get through that. So don't worry about that. We're not going to press you into paying if you're not ready yet. So if at any point if anybody here is in that case where you're like, yeah, I wanted to do it, but it's like 2 days after my trial ends, just let us know that. We'll extend your trial. That's not a problem for us at all. So just let us know that in the chat, and we'll get you sorted out. Awesome. So we got about a little under 15 minutes here left on the call. If there's any other questions that we can dive into, we would very much love to do so. Make the most of the time we have left with you guys. And again, this is open office hours, so there is really no format. We're just here to geek out with you guys. So we can take the conversations anywhere you want to go. We're happy to just geek out no matter what. It's funny, we had that barrage of conferences, Casey, and now we have a big break of them. But I know that the one in October is going to come up super fast. So trying to make sure, keep it top of mind. That one's going to be fun at Sellers United, formerly AMZ United, now Sellers United. That's going to be a fun one. We had a lot of fun last year. So if you're thinking about going to a conference, want to go to a conference, Sellers United would definitely be top of my list to go to as a seller.
Yeah, and that one's, I believe, in Newark, New Jersey.
Yes, that one's going to be in Jersey.
Nice.
Wait, is Jersey different than New Jersey?
I feel like that's something that
like
someone from
geographically
New Jersey would know. I mean, geographically, not to my knowledge. I don't think so.
Yeah, I never thought about that until just now. I was like, I wonder if Jersey is different than New Jersey, because I sometimes call it New Jersey, I sometimes call it Jersey. But now I'm like, have I been talking about two separate cities?
I don't think they're separate. I'm sure New Jerseyans have their own form of identifying their regions there.
So like back home in Jacksonville, we just call it Jax. It's just Jax. Same thing. But who knows? Like when I'm out of Florida and somebody's like, oh, you're from Jax, I'm like, what's up. You called it Jax. That's what's up. Because there's also a Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is weird.
Oh, so, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets confusing. Like, oh, from Jacksonville, they're like, which one? I was like, oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's like I remember years ago they had a nationwide competition where any town named Springfield could submit to be the Springfield that is in The Simpsons, and they all these different towns submitted, and I think Vermont won. So technically, Springfield in The Simpsons is Springfield, Vermont, I believe.
Okay, well, if it's in The Simpsons, it's official. Let's be honest. They're out here predicting the future, all kinds of crazy stuff.
Yeah, That's a conspiracy theory I slightly believe in for sure. That guy's been a little
believe in
too
that.
predictive on some things. Yeah.
I saw some statistician went through and like analyzed everything, like had a whole team analyzing it, and they're like, we're not saying it's not real.
Yeah.
But they make a lot of predictions that don't happen, but they make so many that enough of them do, but it's still higher than it should be.
Yeah.
And like the accuracy is actually crazy, like the details of it. You're like, okay. So maybe they're just sprinkling in some real things that they do know. And the rest, they're just trying to be like, see, we don't know what we're talking about. We're just getting lucky. It's like, actually, false flag. Just saying. Just saying. Awesome, guys. So we got about 10 minutes left here. Any other questions or anything we can dive into before we start to wrap up here for time? And I know we're kind of in this, I think we're still in this weird lull moment with sellers where, it's kind of this calm before the storm. Everybody's kind of chilling a little bit. It's summertime, kind of relaxing. A little bit more emphasis on the lifestyle side is what I'm seeing. A lot more people traveling and stuff like that. I'm seeing a lot of people be like, yeah, next 2 to 3 weeks, business is going to be autopilot. I'm taking some time off before things get crazy with Q3 and Q4 and all that stuff. So if that's you, I think that's a good idea. Now's probably a good time. We used to say way back in the day, like, you take your vacation and you go autopilot in Q1. It seems like that's kind of shifted a little bit more where it's more like mid-year. You kind of do that and maybe a little bit right after Q4, like right after the holidays, you take like a week to just kind of recoup. But then a lot of things kick back off in Q1. Funny enough. At least that's what we saw last year or this year, should I say.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting to, I never really had seasonality in my business in terms of the products I carried. So I never consider my business seasonal, but there's definitely a clear pattern with how sellers operate and when they kind of put, a little bit more pedal on the gas, pull back a little bit, take a little bit of time. It's just kind of interesting because, nobody's out here just like, all right, we're all planning, right? We all agree we're gonna take it easy during this month or these few weeks. But it always kind of happens. You can feel it and you can see it on socials. It's really interesting. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think a little bit maybe tied to like consumer behavior. Obviously, Q4, that's when a lot of consumers are purchasing. Right. Q1, there's a little bit of a slowdown. When springtime comes, you get all the outdoorsy hikers, gardeners, all those people start thinking about their hobbies. And then you get towards the end of school time. That's going to be a big rush on summer things, sporting equipment, swimsuit stuff. And then when you get towards back to school, that's kind of where it picks back up. And you're kind of in the prep for Q4. So there are definitely swings there within like the e-commerce world, if you will. But Q1 definitely seems to be like a statistical review time now where people don't necessarily invest in the inventory. They're kind of looking at their performance while the data is still fresh and they can kind of tweak their processes for, the remainder of the year leading into Q4 the next year. But definitely ebbs and flows.
Yeah. Pretty funny. You spend enough of your life in this space and you find these interesting patterns that sometimes just logically don't make sense, but they just happen. You're like, oh, that's kind of cool. It doesn't affect anything. You're just like, that's interesting. Like I want, and some things you can't get data on, right? You have like the obvious, swings, like you're saying, back to school, Black Friday, all these kind of crazy times. But then you just have these random, and it's not always consistent too. Sometimes I've seen this in the Amazon repricing data where, there's a day where not a lot of sales and, we'll have a user come in and be like, hey, like I'm getting a pullback on sales. What's happening to my account? It's like, well, actually it's everybody, there's just a global lack of demand today and there's no rhyme or reason. It's not like everybody's on holiday. It's like a random Tuesday. And then the next day it kicks back off and you're like, huh, weird. So you have these weird anomalies where enough people increase the demand or decrease the demand in a way that's noticeable, but there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's odd. I love it. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Well, we're going to end it here for time. Appreciate everybody joining us. Again, this is weekly live office hours. So we do this every Wednesday from 2 to 3 p.m. EST. Just an hour-long session where we can sit down, answer any questions you have, geek out with you. If there's any big news or things going on, we'll address those things, bring them up, talk about them. But fundamentally, we're just here to answer your questions and geek out with you guys. So we appreciate you guys making the time to join us for this hour. And with that, we will see you again next week. Enjoy it.
Yeah, and just while we're here, one quick reminder: obviously, next Friday is July 4th. We will be off then. So obviously, we'll still make sure everything's up and running, but support will be off until that following Monday. We'll take you first come, first serve as you came in. But with that said, enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll see you next week.
Awesome. Bye, guys.